At some point, I was less ready than this. So
Fair enough.
At least there's that.
I mean, we're going in the right direction at least. Could we be more ready? Probably, but
Absolutely.
we're going to get into it. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 34 of the Goulet Pencast, where fountain pens are still a thing. I am Brian Goulet.
And I am Drew Brown.
And we are here from Goulet Pens to deliver this casual and informal, tangential and extraneous, superfluous and extemporaneous fountain pen show where we talk about what's going on at the Goulet Pen Company and in our fountain pen lives. In today's show, we have some really fun feedback to go through, and plenty of it. We're going to talk about what makes pens classic, when to graduate from a steel to a gold nib, which pens that we would have other pen companies design if we could. Little cross-pollination there. We have some cool piston maintenance hacks to talk about, and we are going to highlight the Pilot Custom Heritage 92. Give that a little love. So it's going to be a really fun, packed show today. Hope you all enjoy it as we kick it off with some feedback.
And we had a lot of great feedback and actually some debate this week, Brian.
Debate?
Yes, there were some feelings.
Was there really any debate? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, not people weren't debating each other, but there were contrary opinions abound.
I don't know about that, Drew. I think you might be mistaken about that.
Oh, I see what you're doing. He's debating me. You see this? Oh, it's hilarious. Brian.
Took him a second to pick up on it. You like that?
Yeah.
It's all good, man.
All right.
It's going to be fun.
It is. The debate was between the smell of Noodler's pens and whether or not the triple tail smells specifically. Some people said absolutely triple tail do stank, and then some people say no, triple tail smells amazing compared to other Ahabs and creepers. Though I think that there was one person who had the right idea, and I agree with this. The filling mechanism inside the triple tail is the same as the Ahab, and that thing do indeed stank.
Interesting.
So I think that when it's closed, it's probably not bad, but you crack that bad boy open and you're going to get a whiff.
You know, that makes sense why there would be such debate about it, because sometimes it smells and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. In fact, Brian, there were a surprising amount of individuals out there in fountain pen world who love the smell of Noodler's pens, like the ripe ones.
I'm not surprised.
Like,
I tell you, it's like one of those things that you don't want to like it, but you just keep smelling it.
And then there are people who throw it away. Like, there were stories of both. Like, it's so polarizing. People are like, oh man, I love the Noodler smell. One person literally says, send them to me. Send your stinky pens to me.
Wow.
And then some people were like, as soon as I got it, I threw it in the garbage. I couldn't stand it. So it's all over the place. And another source of debate was the question we threw out of is the Lamy 2000 overrated or not? It's a super popular pen. So, just about anything that's super popular is going to have some strong opinions. And a lot of people said that, overrated, maybe a little bit. It's not for me. I think it's a good pen. I'm glad it's out there. But me personally, I don't like the design. I don't like the way it feels, etc. They had very valid reasons for why it's not for them. But there weren't anybody like totally trashing it.
It's fair.
Just a couple people did say it was overrated, but the majority of folks, I think, agreed that it was, it deserves its reputation, which I think makes sense.
You could pretty much argue that for any well-liked pen or any sports team or any car or any wine, whatever. There's,
Agreed.
Not everybody's going to love everything.
Right. One of my favorite comments was actually from a slice that we recently put out. That was an older Pencast Q&A topic where we talked about flex nibs, and we specifically mentioned the Pilot Custom 912 FA nib as a flex nib. But Brian and I, in our experience anyway, both felt like that nib required some personal adaptation on the part of the writer or user. And Brian asked me, like, hey, Drew, do you think that a pen should conform to you, or do you think you should conform to the pen? And, it was a good topic. So Pedro mentioned from that slice, if you get a Porsche 911, you have to conform to it. If you buy a Ferrari 488, you also have to conform to it. So if you get a finicky flex nib, why not conform to it? You must be like a flex nib. flexible.
Ooh.
And I love that analogy, Brian. I think that's fantastic because a lot of folks still believe like, hey, if this thing doesn't write the way I write, it is a failure of a pen. And if you feel that way, totally cool. There's a pen out there for you, don't worry. But I thought that analogy was very appropriate because if you did spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars on, the most pricey sports car, it's not just going to automatically drive the way you're used to driving.
No, not at all. It's going to drive the way it drives.
Yeah, so it got me thinking. And obviously, Porsches and fountain pens aren't the same exact thing, but they do have their own habits and tendencies.
I mean, you could argue that fountain pens are like, proportional to what other pens cost and are involved in maintenance and all that. You could argue that fountain pens are like the performance, like the high-end performance vehicles of the pen, the writing world, right? Like they're obviously not as expensive as a car, but proportionally, you could argue that they are.
Yeah, I really like that analogy. So shout out to Pedro for that one. That was really solid.
Yeah.
And then finally, I wanted to give a shout out to Kevin because Kevin left a message on YouTube saying, I have been a Goulet customer from the beginning. I watched the podcast each week and very much enjoy them. One question for Mr. Brown. Have you ever counted the number of times Mr. Goulet has said, in each podcast? LOL.
It's uncountable.
No, I have not. But honestly, Kevin, I think that he and I might be pretty neck and neck, because, I say, like, a lot of times,
Yeah.
Mine might not be so obvious because they're basically like punctuation to me, It's just, they're really quick right at the end, like I can't stop it. I say it all the time. I'm trying to be better, but I think he and I both have our little things in there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty normal to have some kind of, I don't know, what's a verbal tick or whatever the heck, I don't know what it is, but there's some people have, whether it's or saying, or various things like that. We all have something that we go as a default that's a placeholder for when we're forming a thought, but yet the words are not yet there at the front of our mouth. So our mouth just goes to a default blah, 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 phrase that
let's do that now instead.
It's not distracting at all.
I did want to say that Kevin was indeed right. He's been with us since 2010, and the Goulet Pen Company was not even recognizable at that
infancy.
point.
Yeah.
Like, you just got your LLC in 2009, right?
Yeah. I mean, we consider our actual anniversary, the first shipment of fountain pen wares that we had was November 17th, 2009. So basically right at the end of the year there. So 2010 is really when things were happening for us.
Yeah. So Kevin was really here from the beginning. So that I just thought that was really amazing. Thank you for sticking with us for that long, Kevin.
Thank you. How many you-knows have you probably heard over the last 12 years, Kevin? I mean, just so many. Thanks for sticking with us.
Solid.
Yeah. Got some other...
What you got, Brian?
Yeah, I got some feedback too. This is from Thu. Brian describes various arduous giant puzzles and getting stuck in the mud as fun. Drew, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
You were talking about all this stuff that you considered fun while it just sounded miserable to me.
Yes. Inconceivable.
We have very, very good movie quote there. We have different definitions of fun. That's for sure. No debate about that.
Yeah. Drew thinks it's fun to wear pants in the summer. And
I think it's practical to only buy full pants and not half pants that cost almost as much.
I think you should buy pants that have as many pockets as possible so that you're getting your money's worth
if
too.
You wanted to, do you know how many, if you wanted to find like pants that were laden with pockets, sir, you're going to be able to have so much more options. Have you considered that? Like, it's just a utility pants?
Utility pants? I mean,
with pockets like all the way down at the bottom, like near your calves? I'm sure you could find them.
I have some utility pants that I wear when I'm doing all my outdoor adventures. I'm keeping like utility knives and my keys. I just said,
it's like wearing a backpack on your legs.
I like that.
Yeah, I would think you would, but yet here you are, all shorts purist on me.
I'm not a shorts purist. I'm wearing pants right now.
You're dissing my pants 365 strategy.
I mean, I think it's a good strategy for you. That's all I'm saying. It's different to you than it is to me, and to each their own.
You like pockets, so I'm just saying this is your avenue to more pockets.
I like pockets. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the. Right now, I'm just wearing regular Just regular stupid jeans with regular pockets.
Oh, no. Oh.
And part of it is I hate having stuff in my back pockets. So like a big, thick wallet and stuff like that. I don't like that. So really,
Brian's
I got
like
two
the
pockets,
last...
two front pockets. That's it. And it's just, they're bulging.
Brian's the last like connoisseur of the carpenter jean with like the hammer loop.
Yeah.
Like the man has to find
and you got those
a
little
hammer
pockets
loop
on the side for the pliers. You can stick all kinds of stuff in there. Great pen pockets. You can fit pens in there.
There we go.
It's like it's on the side of your leg. It's not, right at your like hip where you sit down and everything's getting all scrunched up. And maybe it's because I got a big gut too. So my gut kind of like crunches onto my keys and everything else. And if I have pens in there, I have to like make sure they're not like
welcome to your 30s.
Straight up and down. Yeah.
We're all there.
Late 30s here, Drew, at this point. But anyway.
I know.
I got some feedback from Oscar saying, I'm surprised no one in the comments caught Omicron Plumage. That's the name of my new band. That's when I was talking about my haircut getting out of control was my
That's pretty
my
brilliant.
Omicron
I like
Plumage.
that.
It is a good one. I appreciate that.
It's a good band name.
Yeah. Some other feedback. Got lots of appreciation for having another team member on the show. BK joined us last week, which is awesome. As well as appreciation for the info on the Bay State Blue. Some of you said that you're now even ready to give it a shot. So it's been nice knowing you. Hope you, I'm just kidding.
Oh, come on.
I'm just exacerbating
the
rumors. Dustin said, I love Bay State Blue. I'm so glad Brian brought it up in the diluted bleach solution. That's always my tip to anyone with Bay State phobia. Love the cast, y'all. And then, oh boy, Loke thinks bye. Brian is...
No, LOLK thanks bye.
LOLK thanks bye. Okay. It was spelled all interesting. Okay, cool. I like that. Brian is right on the money, my sort of guy. I've used this is the other Brian. I've used Bay State Blue in $5 to $100 pens, even vintage pens. Never had much of a problem with it, and any staining is kept in the converter and cleaned out with some light bleach. There you go. And CC, I guess, wanted everybody to hear about this. After watching this, I repaired my stained VAC 700 and made it a dedicated Bay State Blue pen. Absolutely love having this always at hand now. That's a good pen to have a dedicated color. Not necessarily Bay State, but basically anything, because it's got such a high ink capacity. And if we got to be honest, that pen is more of a pain to clean than most. Any vacuum pen is just a lot of pumping dumping going on with cleaning that out. Though I will say with the TWSBI, though, you can unscrew the mechanism out of the back and then use a bulb syringe to flush it out. Little life hack there. Makes it way easier. So that's the feedback we got for this week. That was plenty. And now we're going to move on to some new stuff. We finally, after, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, something, have
been a while.
The full assortment of the Pelican twist pens that we originally ordered. We've been missing the black one all along, but we finally got it back in. So now we have that. It's the first time we've ever had it. It's a black Pelican twist, so it's not anything revolutionary, but black's a pretty universal pen. It's kind of like a matte black too. It's nice color. All those colors have kind of a matte finish to them.
Yeah, kind of I think a satiny, right? That's kind of like between matte and glossy is satin.
Or you can have semi-gloss, or you can have eggshell. There's a lot of different things.
Well, yeah, in terms of
if you're going with like paint sheens here.
Yeah.
It used to be like 3 or 4 of them. Now there's like 7 or 8. I can't even keep track anymore. I'm like,
there's like semi eggshell.
This is too many options, folks.
Quasi satin.
Like it's already hard enough to pick a paint color. I don't know a sheen. I don't know. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Semi satin gloss. I don't know. Whatever. Just one. It's fine. Anyway, has nothing to do with anything. So we have the Pelican Twist in black. It's a medium nib only, though the pen writes really smoothly. Standard International takes a short and a long. Doesn't come with a converter, but you can add one. We have a special converter for that.
Yeah, it works best with the Pelican converter.
Yeah.
With the Standard International converter, you can get it in there, but it kind of needs to be held in place with the back of the pen, and precarious enters the verbiage in that situation.
If you like the life on the edge, use a non-Pelican converter. Now it'll fit fine, but the other one fits a little better. So
yeah,
$24 and a little extra for the converter if you want to get that. And then we also have Conklin All-American, pretty popular pen style in general. We have a special edition called the Blue Demo. So it's a translucent blue, like a mid-range blue color with, I don't know, maybe like 50% translucency. Pretty solid dedicated translucent, but also very, very blue. That's a rose gold trim as well. So that looks pretty Toit. $100 for that one. Converter is included. You got a good range of nib sizes. These are the Jovo German number 6 size nibs, extra fine through 1.1 stub, and an Omniflex in there as well. So this is a great pen for like mid to larger size hands. Great especially for those who maybe have some like hand issues, arthritis, these types of things. It comes up regularly as a good pen for those who need a larger pen that doesn't weigh quite as much. This one falls into that category, sort of like the Edison Collier, kind of falls into that group too. So I think it's a great one for those who are using it kind of as a daily writer. So yeah, kind of cool to see. I'm always a fan of new blue pens coming out. You know me, Drew.
I do. You like some blue.
Give me that blue.
All right. Same thing as what Brian said, all the nib options and whatnot, apply that to the new Conklin Endura Deco Crest. These pens are of 3 different colorways, all with the same sort of Jovo nib situation and converter situation that Brian just mentioned for the blue demo. However, this is pretty new in terms of the visuals. This colorway has 3 different combinations. We've got a rose gold overlay on blue acrylic. We've got a silver and steel overlay on black acrylic. And then finally, we've got a black overlay on orange acrylic. So 3 very different looking pens, and it's an overlay pen. So our first overlay pen in
a while. No, we had the Visconti watermark. But that pen was like
that's true.
That pen was
that's true.
Well over $1,000.
Yep, you're right. You're right. So definitely the most accessible overlay pen we've ever had.
That is true.
And it's from Conklin. Conklin has done overlay stuff before in the past with their crescent filler models. So this is definitely a thing for their brand, and we're excited to carry it. Again, this one also, like the All American, is going to be $100. And Brian, what is your favorite of these? You generally like a blue pen, as we just said. However,
I do, but I don't like how the overlay is covering up some of the blue. I don't know.
How dare it?
I'm offended by that.
How dare it? So the black and orange, though, right? Come on.
The black and orange is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
That is pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
When I was looking at these, that one actually kind of took me back a little.
Yeah.
That one was impressive.
They all look really pleasant to me, and they're very different from each other too, which I
like
really
that.
like.
Yeah, they're very different.
And each one has a different overlay color. So, I mean, the design is the same on all of them, but the overlay is a different finish on each one. So I think it's really nice that they tried to do a very different version on each one of these. So, who knows? I don't know if it's something that they're going to kind of keep doing or do new ones. I'm sure if it's popular, they'll come out with new colors because they could easily do that. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how these are received, especially for the price. Like overlay pens, most of the overlay pens I've seen are either like custom made, which are really expensive, or on like limited editions over $1,000 from companies like Visconti, or they're vintage and kind of hard to come by and usually $500 plus. So really haven't seen a lot of very accessible overlay pens. I think it's going to appeal to people who are more in like the collector kind of vintage, like that vibe. So I don't know how a new, more accessible overlay pen will gel with that, and if it's appealing to those who like newer pens. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how you all receive them, but they're like very sturdy. I was concerned that holding it that it would feel like really cheap and flimsy and like you'd be able to bend the overlay and all that kind of stuff, but no, it's very solid feeling. So I was pleasantly surprised.
So was I. But I was even more, I guess I wasn't more surprised, but I'm excited, very, very excited that we are going to have some new stickers available here at the Goulet Pen Company. So prior to now, you, if you had wanted to, could take the opportunity to buy Pencast specific inside jokey stickers on our spring.com storefront, which is just kind of where we have some miscellaneous branded items and things like that. However, we got some of those in, and here's the barnacle sticker, by the way, and it's pretty gigantic.
Pretty sizely.
Pretty sizely, and we didn't get an option to change the size. And if you're trying to, wrap this around a mug or something like that, like this is going to have to go around.
It's going to dominate.
Yeah, it's going to, almost circumnavigate said vessel. So we decided, let's go ahead and just go with the sticker company we already use for the, in-order stickers, and we'll get those up on the website so that you don't have to go to a different website if you want to pick those up. And we thought, while we're there, which, by the way, new barnacle, spring barnacle. So We like this one a little bit better. The quality is a little bit better, the resolution's nice, and the size is much more realistic. So you can get this.
But we know you are like an OG Pencast fan if you have the huge sticker, because that one you're only going to be able to get through spring.
Yep, and we'll probably not do those on the spring.com store anymore. There's really no reason to.
I don't know. I've been surprised how many people have bought the stickers.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you're going to have a better option. Also, the Pencast sticker, as opposed to the spring.com sticker. So slightly smaller, better resolution.
It's like a 3-inch versus a 4-inch sticker, basically.
Yeah, it looks good.
Just to go with actual dimensions.
There's Barney and friends there. So if you'll remember, this came about because Brian called them ink crustaceans when we were describing the clumpy dye sediment issue that sometimes happens on top of nibs. And then a YouTube commenter mentioned something about them being called a barnacle. Then Brian took the barnacle comment and, coined the Barney the barnacle term. And then another YouTube user created a draft that looked kind of like this. We edited a little bit, got a sticker made up, and here it is. Marvelous. And then, of course, we have to mention the turkey hammock itself.
Classic.
This one is now also going to be available on the website.
Was that the first one we did? Was that the one that kicked it all off?
Yes, this was the first sticker.
Yeah.
And this story was such, it was basically Brian and I wanted to find out how many people were still listening to us at the bitter end of a Pencast where we were just rambling, just nonsense.
Back when we thought an hour-and-a-half podcast was long.
Yeah, so I just said, if you're, I came up with turkey hammock, and Brian was like, hey, if you wanted to show us that you've been listening the whole time, we're curious, say turkey hammock in the comments. And my God, a bunch of people said turkey hammock. We were pretty flabbergasted, and even to this day, we'll still get turkey hammock in the comments for a little symbol that denotes you have listened to the very, very end when we are talking about nothing important at all. So if you haven't done that in a while,
Drew. Maybe we should do that again.
Ha ha.
No, we'll have to see.
If you have listened to the end, you deserve to fly your turkey flag. And then finally, actually, you know what? Yeah, finally, we are going to be adding a new sticker to the mix. I'm really, really excited about this one, Brian. Do you want to give a quick little short story on this final one, Brian?
Which one are you talking about?
This is a new one.
Yeah. Oh, we can give a brief synopsis. I mean,
you were there, I wasn't.
Those of you who are Pencast listeners have heard the full story. Basically, Rachel and I were eating at Bojangles, one of Drew's favorite restaurants. They're known for their Bowberry biscuits, but they also have just regular biscuits. Rachel and I were partaking, which we very rarely eat there, but we happened to make this iconic memory at one of these places. And Rachel was eating her meal, and she had her biscuit, and she was saving it. She likes to save her favorite food of whatever meal, whatever treat that she may be enjoying. She saves her favorite thing to the end so that she eats it at the end. She's got the patience and emotional intelligence to do so. I legitimately don't know whether I do that on a regular basis. I don't know if I usually eat the thing I like first. Probably no, I don't think I do that. I think I save it to the end as well. Because I'm never going to not have room for the thing that I want to eat the most. I'm going to force it and be in pain if I have to eat that thing that I really want. So I usually save mine to the end. But anyway, so when I asked Rachel, I was like, hey, are you going to eat that? Because I wanted to eat her biscuit, as I always offer up so generously to help whoever I'm dining with to finish off their food.
Selfless.
Because I'm a human garbage disposal. And she said, no, I want to end on a biscuit. So that has become the phrase iconically around Goulet pens of when you want to save the best thing to the end is you want to end on a biscuit.
Or go out with a bang, or just, you
want to
end on a high note.
End on a high note. Yeah, George Costanza style. So there you go. End on a biscuit. That's how we did a sticker about it. That's the whole story.
And there it is. It's in this awesome, awesome format. If you want to emblazon your beverage vessel or notebook with something to remind you to go out with a bang,
or just eat, or just beverage vessel. I love that phraseology.
Or just like, this could just be a reminder to eat more biscuits. Like, that's what I'm going to take it as. I'm just going to say, like, have you been to Bojangles recently? And I do want to mention, when we are talking about biscuit, this is the American style biscuit, which is basically a really fluffy scone.
Good point.
But,
not a biscuit like I think the European,
we call
UK.
them,
yeah, those are cookies.
Yeah, we call them cookies over here. But this is it might look like a scone, but it's fluffier and much more unhealthy.
Yeah. More unhealthy than a cookie? I don't know about that.
No. Well, a scone. I don't know how much butter. No, scones are
pretty
buttery.
bad.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, they are. Okay, well. Anyway, and then we're also adding a bunch more. So we've got this awesome heavy metal fountain pen thing that some really, really awesome guy drew. And then this one was a freebie. Now it's going to be for sale. So if you wanted this right on logo, you can get that now. And then the famous Emerald of Chicken sticker is now going to be for sale. Again, previously available as a freebie. And Ellie Goulet's famous turtle is going to be available for sale as well if you don't want to wait to get one randomly in your order.
There you go.
And then we've got 2 new stickers. A tribute to Hammy, the hamster, holding a rose gold Twisby Eco. So Hammy's going to be available. And then we have another one. Both of these were by Inky Converters on Instagram. And this is a Pilot Iroshizuku bottle of Sukiyo Moonlight. So you've got a nice little moonlit scene there. And all of these should be on sale by time this pencast airs, or very, very, very shortly after. So keep your eye out on that.
Yeah. I can't remember, Drew. Did we end up doing the stickers bigger than the freebies? I can't remember if it's the exact same. Yeah, we did them slightly bigger. Yeah. So the freebies we have that you get with your order, they're slightly smaller. These ones will be a little bit bigger, just so you know.
Yeah, here's the freebie, and here's the it's actually quite bigger.
Yeah, we wanted it to be like meaningful.
Yeah.
You're paying for
so
it.
You'll get more bang for your buck. And then if you get a duplicate, it's not like you're getting the exact same thing.
Exactly. There we go. Thanks, Drew, for showing that. All right.
Yeah, that's the new stuff.
Cool. All right, let's bounce on over into the Q's and A's.
All right, our first Q and A, Brian, comes to us from our old friend David, who, if you remember last week, decided to besmirch the name of Lamy 2000.
The notorious David, yeah.
You know what? I do have to say that I feel remiss because I didn't. Someone in the comments just responded, "Ew, David," and as like a Schitt's Creek reference, which I was like, "Oh, I should have. How did I not Alexis him?" So yeah, that was a good one.
Nice.
I laughed out loud at that. Okay, so David comes back and says, "Hi, Drew. Hi, Brian. Having enjoyed this pencast whilst sitting in a corner with my head bowed, thinking about what I said about the Lamy 2000.
As you should.
A question sprang to mind. What makes a fountain pen a classic or an icon? Is it the design? Is it how well it sells? Is it its functionality? Or is it some mystical other thing? I felt like we needed to listen to David this week since we since I kind of roasted him last week. So I actually thought this was a really good question, regardless of my guilt for roasting David. But Brian added some thoughts here.
I did, yeah.
So
well, as I always do when I want to really make something official, I look it up on Wikipedia and then read the definition.
Webster's Dictionary defines it as.
No, but I thought it was pretty pertinent. I was like, what does classic even mean? It's like, I think I know what classic means, but what does it actually mean kind of in this context? I thought it'd be helpful when kicking it off. So, of course, I look it up on a questionably reliable source, Wikipedia. So a classic is an outstanding example of a particular style, something of lasting worth, or with a timeless quality, of the first or highest quality class or rank, something that exemplifies its class. So I thought that was helpful in defining what makes a pen classic. It is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, not just in the pen world, but all over the place. It's a word I've thrown around a lot when I talk about certain pen designs and, certain brands that tend to have a more classic look or classic offering in their color range or something like that. But there really isn't a strict definition of what that is in the pen world. So I thought it was at least helpful to talk about it. I don't know that we're going to actually define it and come to some meaningful conclusions today, but I guess we could and then just declare it, and who's going to stop us, right? Because we have 2 microphones and we're 2 people jawboning on a podcast talking about pens.
Well, I guess it falls to me alone to disagree with everything you're about to say then, doesn't it?
I guess it does, doesn't it? If you can.
All right.
Well, we'll see.
Right. I'll do my best.
Yeah, so what pens are classic? That was what was on my mind. I think it's very firmly up for debate, especially with a 150-year history. I think classic could be something that's interpreted with a varying range of perspective, right? Depending on if you're talking about something like video games, right? A classic video game only goes back so far. Fountain pens are much older than video games, right? So something that's classic in video games might be 20 years old. Whereas in fountain pens, 20 years old, that pen is probably still being made as it is today and hasn't now been redesigned. So is it still a classic if it hasn't even been changed? So I think that's up for debate. I don't know what age we should consider something to be classic. I think maybe at least 10 years old. Like it has, if a pen's not 10 years old, it's really hard to call it a classic with a 150-year history. It could probably even go older than that, quite honestly. 20 years maybe. I don't know. I don't know these things. I'm not a big vintage guy, so I don't really know where the line tends to be drawn there. When does a pen even become vintage, to be honest with you? We talk about vintage pens. Does that mean it's discontinued, not available anymore?
Brian, this is the answer part, not the question's already been answered. Asked. So your job is to now answer.
Oh shoot. Well,
yeah,
we are in
Sorry.
trouble. This is the blind leading the blind right here. I don't really know. I'm asking rhetorical questions, sort of.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So I would say if you have thoughts about this, or especially if you are bigger into like the collector vintage world, and you're like, yeah, people that are really into vintage pens, you really don't consider something vintage or classic or whatever until XYZ. There may be some parameters around that I'm not as familiar with. Just being honest, I don't know everything about pens, though I do know a lot of some things. So I think it's the comments could definitely help guide us here. I do think, going back to some of David's follow-up questions, I think sales or popularity has to be a factor. I don't think you can just have some radical one-off pen that was designed that nobody bought, that was for some trade show or some whatever event. Like there's other things like I'm thinking of there's like concept cars, is a concept car that's never in production. Is that really something you can call a classic? It needs to be kind of its own category, right? So it's kind of the same thing if you have, an independent pen maker who makes one crazy one-off pen or 5 pens, in one instance. And is that really a classic? So I do think that some element of popularity availability has to be in the debate, though it's not the only factor, of course. I think it's got to have something iconic about it that makes it recognizable from other pens or distinguishable from other pens. Something where you can point to that pen and say, that is a distinctive characteristic of that pen. Whether it's, it could be part of the name, it could be the design or when it came out, it could be iconic, it could be the filling mechanism, could be material, it could be a number of different things. But I think it's got to have something distinguishable about it. Some element of uniqueness or innovation, or maybe even some relevance as like a period of history or as a part of a conversation of a societal era or movement or something like that. I think there's a lot of things that we could consider classic. I'm thinking like specifically of cars, right? Like the 57 Chevy, is classic because of crap. I'm falling off the cliff of what I know about cars, but it's regarded as like one of the best cars. Shoot, I don't know where I am. Drew, help. Drew can't help me out. I can't grab onto him as I'm drowning.
I just said you should talk about the Lamy 2000. You decided to go deep.
I did, didn't I? Why am I doing this? I don't even know why I'm here. Okay. So really it's something that society has to define, so it's always evolving. There's no firm definition of what's classic or what's not. So I think we can call something classic. Doesn't mean that everybody has to like it. Doesn't mean that it has to be indisputable. In fact, it is impossible to have something indisputable because by its very nature, it is not firmly defined. It's always up for debate. So specifically around the Lamy 2000, I would argue that it is considered a classic for several reasons. One is that it remains today a top-selling pen and a highly regarded, highly reviewed pen, though not a favorite for everyone. A lot of the things that people have against it are personal preference reasons or just things that they don't like about it. It's not that it's a poor quality pen or a bad design or anything like that. The pen itself has not changed. It's just a matter of do people like it or not. So, it's been around for over 50 years. has barely changed any in its design since its inception, still looks like a futuristic yet classic pen. It's also just very kind of indicative of like the Bauhaus design. It's tied firmly with the Lamy brand, very recognizable to Lamy as a Lamy pen. And it's gotten numerous awards and recognition for various design and things like that that are not even specific to the pen world. So there has been objective, if you could call design awards objective, there are non-fountain pen people that have called this pen, some element of iconic in its design. So I think there are a lot of reasons to consider a Lamy 2000 a classic, even if it's not the pen for you. So I think probably every pen brand that's around today has something that you could probably consider classic or iconic for that brand, whether or not they necessarily designed it to be that way. Because as I was thinking about this in my head, I was like, we usually call things flagship, right? Like you have flagship products, or if you have a retailer that has a whole bunch of stores, you usually have a flagship store. Like Apple has their New York City store, that's their flagship store, or whatever. It's usually something that's really big, expensive, showy. It's meant to be the biggest and craziest thing. I don't think that necessarily the flagship pen within a brand is necessarily like the classic or iconic pen for that brand. Would you argue that, Drew? Like,
I think that they can be different.
Yeah, like I would consider like the Pelican M1000 as being the, flagship pen of theirs, but is the M1000 the classic or iconic pen that they have? I don't know if
really, they're all just kind of the same at different sizes.
Shh. No, they're all very different, Drew. I would argue like the M600 maybe is a little more of a classic pen in that sense than the M1000, because they are similarly designed, but it's much more popular. They've done a lot more versions of it and different special editions and things. So anyway, yeah. So I have a list of other pens, but I see that you have a list as well, and I've already talked a lot. So I'm gonna.
No. I think our lists are different. Your lists are more historical. My lists are more modern.
I specifically went a little different than you did.
Yeah, go for it.
With yours. Okay, so some other classic pens, I won't go deep into them, but I think Pilot has several, but I think the Falcon, I would consider that to be a classic pen within Pilot because it's been around for a while and it's got a unique nib. It's very recognizable, within the Pilot line. The Mont Blanc 149, that I think is very iconic. People that don't even know pens can usually see that pen and know that it's a Mont Blanc. To that effect, you have other ones that are similarly designed to that in the classic styling, as I've literally said in many videos. Pens like the Sailor 1911, right? Kind of similar-ish in style to the Mont Blanc 149, right? The Pelican Souverain series, all of them, as Drew mentioned, is on my list. The Parker 51, the Parker Duofold, those are both pretty classic within the Parker's line. The Waterman 52, Waterman and Parker both, and Schaefer, they've all been around for a very long time, so that you could probably name several pens you would consider classic or iconic from them. The Conklin Crescent, that was a very unique, very iconic pen of its time as well. So I think if you're looking historically, especially for very old pen companies, you're probably talking about pens that maybe aren't even made anymore. But Drew picked some that we actually do still have. So he went a little more of like pens that we have that we might consider classics, right?
Yeah, I would say that they're on their way to becoming classic, but I definitely think there are iconic pens. Okay. Just, if you're looking at ones that you could get right now that you could say are iconic for one reason. Like you mentioned before, I completely agree. I think that to be iconic, you need to have a standout thing.
Yeah.
And the Visconti Homo sapiens, the Bronze Age, the classic one, at the time, it was a lava pen. It had the vacuum filling mechanism was available, but I think that it really popularized it. So you had two elements right there that broke out and became really popular. And even to this day, the Bronze Age Homo sapiens, with that volcanic resin, is immensely popular and still a phenomenal seller.
Yeah.
The Pilot Vanishing Point, that one is, it took a outdated, completely unnecessary technology in the fountain pen. Let's be real, we all love it, but it's not necessary. And then made it actually practical. Like, so you took this, piece of, obsolete technology and incorporated new technology into it to actually bring it into the realm of functionality once again. So the Pilot Vanishing Point did something very, very special and absolutely deserves the iconic denotation, if not the classic one. So I just really love the fact that it kind of resurrected into the practical space once again. The Pilot 823 is a unique one because while there was not a single visual element to this pen that's immediately set it apart, as time has gone on, this pen has been slowly rising in popularity. And the only thing I can say is that it is a good, well-made pen. And while it doesn't have this completely loud element to it, if it is a really high quality pen that writes fantastically, eventually it's going to get out there that it is just a darn good pen and people are going to buy it. And I think that's what's happening. Every year that pen becomes more and more popular, but gradually more and more popular just because of its own merits. It works, it's pretty, and it's going to serve you well. So that one is a really, really interesting case. But that one, I think that it is basically iconic because of its performance. And I really think that that is unique. And then I added TWSBI on here. While not one pen, you could probably go with the Eco or the 580 in this case. But if we're looking at the last decade, 2010 to 2020, they were revolutionary and iconic in the way that they were able to, around the 2010 era, I think that we all saw a surge in fountain pen popularity because of a new audience, a new level of interest surged into the community, and TWSBI was at the forefront of that with their pens, chiefly the 580 probably, but they ushered that in, with the assistance of a lot of interested people in a new demographic and age group that wanted pens like TWSBI, and TWSBI was there to help these people along in building this interest that we now see is more diverse than ever. So I have to take off my hat to TWSBI for being there when the fountain pen industry needed them and continuing to be there. They also are probably the most self-disruptive fountain pen company in the industry, consistently challenging their own innovative ideas with new innovative ideas and not being afraid of failure, just trying new things in order to stay fresh and interesting. And they've done it. They've succeeded tremendously. So I think those groups, you can still buy pens from all of these, and they're well on their way. If this trajectory continues, they're on their way to becoming, so-called classics or icons, in my opinion.
Yeah, classics in the making. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think icon could be brand new, or it could be super, super old. It transcends.
Yeah, I would definitely consider
age.
these icons. Time will tell if classic gets there.
Yeah, well, we'll have to watch this video in 10 or 20 years and see once. Yeah, Drew's gone completely bald and I weigh 100 pounds more than I do.
I was about to say, I was like, man, look at all my hair.
That's right. You can do that now. You can look back at 10-year-old videos and be like, wow.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. No, that's how it goes, right? Circle of life.
Absolutely.
All right. Next question we have is from Where Me Who. Noodler's Lexington Gray and a TWSBI Eco Extra Fine. The line seems thicker, but not sure if it is my mistake. Drew, what in the world is going on here? This
is an interesting one because I think Lexington Gray is tricking you a little bit. Now, I am making some assumptions here, Where Me Who. I'm assuming that you have used this pen before, and with other inks, it's been fine. So hopefully that's the case. If that's not the case, just try a different ink or try a different paper. It might just be something else. But if you have used this pen before and you haven't seen this happening, what is probably happening is that Lexington Gray is soaking into the paper faster than what you're used to. Normally, with with inks that are super absorbent and dry really fast. Like Lexington dries in like 10 seconds. I love it. It's one of my favorites for that. But anything that dries that fast is going to absorb that fast. And depending on your type of paper, usually that quick absorption causes feathering. You'll see these kind of tendrils of ink kind of going outward from where you wrote. However, if it's not a very fibrous type of paper but is still absorbent, you might not see that feathering very obviously. What you're instead going to see is just a fat line. So the same thing's still happening. It's just not, the feathering isn't that kind of traditional, like, kind of lightning bolt looking feathering. It's just kind of a widening of the line. Yeah. So that can be tricky.
I've called that spreading. Where it's not like the hairy caterpillar looking kind of feathering, right? But it literally just puts down a fatter looking line.
Exactly. So it's probably not your pen. It's probably the ink. It's probably the spread, just as Brian said. So I would try a different paper. And then if that's the paper you have, if you're at work or at school and that's kind of just what you need to work with, sadly, Lexington is probably not going to be the optimal choice for that paper. So try something that dries a little slower, which, I mean, Lexington's almost the fastest you can get. It's right up there. So pretty much anything but that should be okay for you.
Yeah, I found that this is the case with a lot of the Noodler's bulletproof inks. Not all of them, but a lot of them, they have that, it quickly absorbs and you get a wider spread. You get a little flatter color, not quite as much shading because it's absorbing into the paper quicker. Just something about the dye properties of that ink, whatever mystical properties that Nathan's Oompa Loompas are putting into that ink. I don't exactly know what, but I've noticed that as a trend. And that was especially evident when, 10 years ago now, we were testing different variations of Liberty's Elysium when we were first developing that with Nathan. Well, he sent us different formulations based on how bulletproof the ink was that we were trying to go for. And I was able to see very clearly, the distinction of the more bulletproof he made it, the flatter it looked, the less vibrant the color was, the more it spread on the page because it was absorbing in. And I think you're going to get that with a lot of the bulletproof and eternal inks, basically the more permanent properties that are in the Noodler's inks specifically. And I think you get this a little bit with some of like the Diatramentus document inks too. I don't know if the properties are the same there or the dyes are the same or whatever, because it's all mysterious. But I definitely think that that could be a factor. And maybe the paper, the paper could be performing differently with these permanent inks than it would with non-permanent inks. Does that make sense? So you can have some papers are not necessarily universally equally absorbent for all different types of ink. If you have a paper that's a little more absorbent, some inks may be unnoticeable in terms of how much they absorb. Other ones, like these ones that tend to absorb more, may be more affected by the absorbency of certain papers. So a myriad of different factors that could be at play. There you go.
That's right.
Cool.
Okay. Question number 3 this week comes to us from Ethan.Sam. And Ethan says, "My fine nibs keep splaying. What am I doing wrong?" And then he is literally crying here.
Emoji.
We see his bald yellow face.
It's rough.
That's an emoji. Never mind.
Oh.
Yeah, but we can only surmise based on his emoji use that Ethan was actively sobbing when he wrote this. Brian, help him, please.
I can hear the tears. Yeah. This is one of those ones where, again, we have so little context to go off of here, but I'm just going to make perhaps.
Let's assume he's writing with these when they're splaying.
Okay, that's probably a pretty safe assumption. If he's just looking at them and they're splaying, your pens may be possessed.
That's your fault, Ethan.
You may have some sort of paranormal activity at play, and you should partake in some kind of ritual, maybe, I guess. I don't know where you stand on all that, but I think something supernatural is required to handle that. No, I think basically if your nibs are splaying, there's really only one thing that causes that, and that's you. It's your fault. You're causing that, so you should stop that. No, I'm being very rude here, but no, basically it's too much writing pressure. That's really what's doing it. Especially if you're not using a flex nib. If it's just a standard nib, you should not be bending those tines at all. If you're actually splaying those nibs, you have way too much writing pressure. Way too much. You should not be putting any pressure on that nib at all. Basically, a properly tuned nib should write just under its own weight. So you're holding the pen and you're keeping it essentially at the proper angle, rotation, all that kind of stuff. You want to keep it so that the pen's making proper contact, but you're not assisting the ink to go onto the page. And if you are, you're going to splay the nib at some point. And to what degree depends on how much pressure you're writing with it. Because nibs are not really made to be written with a whole ton of pressure. I mean, if you have a steel nib and it's, fairly thick and stuff like that, yeah, you can write with some pressure and it can take it. But over time, you're going to weaken it because you're putting pressure on it. It really should not have a lot of added weight to it. The ink flows through with capillary action. It's going to flow through the tines, the ink is going to make contact with the paper, and that alone is going to allow that ink to flow through as it should. So my guess probably is what you're experiencing is because you and your subconscious want to be writing with a broader nib than what you have, or you want your ink to be darker and more saturated than what it is. I know this because I experienced this for myself when I first started out in fountain pens. I love broad nibs, I love stubs, I love putting a lot of ink, really saturated colors. Even when I wasn't consciously aware of what I was doing, I was trying to make everything do that, whether it was made for that or not. And I found that, my hand would cramp up more, where my, extra fine and fine nibs felt really scratchy. The ink seemed really weak when I was writing with finer nibs, when in fact they were doing exactly what they were designed to do. It's just the physical properties of writing with a finer nib don't lend themselves to putting as much ink on the page. It doesn't lend themselves to making the ink look as dark or as broad of a line. And I found that once I started writing with broader nibs, I lightened up on my pressure because my brain was perceiving what it wanted to see on the page. So I think that if you can lighten up on the pressure a lot, and the way that you can test this, you can sort of test now. If you've already kind of bent your nibs and you've got issues, then you may not be able to do this. But on a properly working fountain pen, you should be able to take, a piece of paper or a pad, something with some backing to it, and you should be able to hold the back of the pen and literally just be able to touch the nib onto the page, and then just under its own weight, you should be able to drag it across the paper like that, and you should see a line. This pen's not inked, so you're not seeing it, but that's what you should be able to do. So that is the amount of pressure basically that you should be able to write with. So you got to lighten up on that pressure quite a bit, and then you're going to have a much better experience. And this is something very common with new people to fountain pens, because you come over from a lifetime of pencils and ballpoints and roller balls where literally friction and pressure is required to get those things to write. Fountain pens work differently, which is beautiful when you can finally get used to them, because your hand pressure is lighter. You can have, less of a grip on the writing instrument. So all the small muscles in your fingers can ease up a little bit. And then you can write more with your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder when writing with a fountain pen, because essentially all you're doing is stabilizing the pen and you're trying to control it, not trying to submit it to do your will. And so I think if you're able to practice with a little bit more, maybe try a broader nib and see if that is more to your liking, then I think with a little bit of practice, you can do that, and then you're not going to splay your nibs anymore.
I actually, twice now, I've shown how fountain pens work by taking a straw, filling it with water, and plugging my finger at one end so the water didn't come out, and then using a paper towel to, like, if right at the end you've still got water right there at the edge of the straw, you can just barely touch the straw to the paper towel, and the paper towel sucks ink right out. Yeah. And then you can lift it up again, and it'll stop. But if you touch it again, it'll go again. That's a very extreme example of the physics behind fountain pens.
Same principle, though.
It's essentially the same thing. Like I don't have to push that straw up against the paper towel. All the straw is a guide to get the water to the paper towel in that instance. So that's really what a fountain pen nib is too. It's just a guide. It's like a tunnel, like an ink tunnel that you are moving around, like Brian said, to just control where the ink goes. The actual sending the ink to the paper is not under your control at all. All you need to do is just, connect those two friends, your medium and your ink, and they'll do the job for you. You just need to guide it. It's a partnership.
Yeah. There you go. I believe in you, Ethan. I believe in you. I think you can do it. Cool. All right. Next question is from Odin's Beard. If one brand had to design a pen for another brand, so I'm assuming like one's designing it, the other one's making it, right?
Okay, sure.
Who would you pick, and what's the pen like?
Odin's Beard. Well, I've thought about this, and I'm pretty excited to share my answer with Odin's actual facial hair. So, my pick is going to be a Pineider design. So Pineider is helmed by, I suppose you could call him a visionary, Dante Del Vecchio, founder of Visconti, designer of the Homo sapiens and other iconic pens like that. Allegedly iconic. But yeah, anyway, I would want him, because he designs crazy fun stuff, and I would want him to design something to be made by Pilot. So essentially a crazy passionate Italian design manufactured with Japanese consistency, care, and patience. So a boundary pushing filling system, something never before seen, something crazy, borderline impractical probably, something not necessary at all. I mean, I think that at this point, our filling mechanisms are pretty much as practical as they can get. Anything after this point is going to be probably impractical, but that's fine if it's fun. So never before seen filling mechanism. And then, so Dante obviously created the Homo sapiens while he was with Visconti, with Pineider. He is working on the Alchemist now, which is, not quite as volcanic, but it has some volcanic elements to it. I would want this pen to be like super volcanic, like an actual lava rock with like giant holes and pores in it. But with Pilot making it, I would want them to totally impregnate that thing with urushi lacquer, clear lacquer that would permeate the entirety of that rock, giving it a nice smooth finish, but yet it would have all of the porous, rocky details beneath those layers and layers and layers of urushi. I think that would be sweet. And of course, under that, a crazy, wacky filling mechanism. Don't ask me how it's going to all get in there. Pilot will figure it out. And then, of course, my favorite looking nib, the Pineider quill nib. I want that nib, but I want Pilot to make it. So pretty much the same nib, but with, that Japanese care, attention to detail. Like, oh my God, can you imagine? That would be something else. That beautiful nib, but with Japanese precision. Yes, please do want. Give it to me now. Odin's Beard. Thank you.
It's a good choice.
Brian?
It's a good choice.
Oh, it is. Yes, sir.
I struggled with this one a little bit. I'm going to be honest. But I think I came up with something that's pretty interesting. It's very niche. Not a lot of people are going to be aware of it. But one of the pens that I really like, and I just don't know where they are right now, just like in existence, is Conid. They've Conid, they're like aerospace engineers or something like that. I don't know. They are not primarily pen people, but there are some pen enthusiasts within their company that designed the Conid pens. Now I know that as of the start of the pandemic 2 years ago, they were already so backlogged, and they basically stopped taking new orders. So I don't know where they stand right now, but I love the design that they have, and their bulk filler filling mechanism is so cool. And I have a Minimalistica pen of theirs, which is really, really cool. But obviously their capacity is not, anywhere near where they can actually make it. So I would love to see a Minimalistica bulk filler type design, but have, a company like Pilot or Lamy or something. I don't think it's necessarily as crucial exactly who is the manufacturer, but somebody with larger capacity, that's known for high quality and things like that could really do it justice. I'm inclined to say like a Pilot Namiki type. I would think of somehow incorporating urushi and, Rodin and stuff like that into that filling mechanism would just be awesome. But I could see Lamy doing a really good job too, because they've got a very industrial kind of vibe to them as well. So either one of those I think would do really well. I probably would choose Pilot Namiki, but Drew just talked about it a lot. So I feel like he kind of owns that. So
no. But I would say that
too.
I would say that it depends on if you want to be very different. Like I'm going from Italian to Japan. You could just stick with Europe and go from Belgium to Germany. That's not... It's
not too far. It's a little jump there. Yeah, but that would be my choice. And then maybe like the Pilot, I really like the nib on the custom urushi. So not quite that huge Emperor nib, but the slightly less huge, but beautifully designed, that number 30 size nib, like what you have on the Yukari Royale, or on that custom urushi, the big one. I like that nib a lot, and it writes amazing. So I would
two-tone.
The two-tone, yeah. I would somehow cram that thing in there and try and make it work.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
We got one more.
All right. We do have one more, and this is from Miguel. And Miguel asks, when to graduate from steel to gold nibs?
Oh, that's such a good question. Such a good question. This might sound a little weird starting off with a question like this, but I think it's important to say that you don't necessarily have to. I think the maybe assumption with a question like this is that if you don't graduate, that you're like not completing or something like that. I don't think that's the case. I think it's years and years and years and years ago, there was a distinctly different, level of quality and stuff like that between steel nib and gold nib pens. Gold was a lot cheaper decades ago in comparison to steel. The quality of steel and the steel alloys was a lot more hit or miss, wasn't quite as reliable. So you have a much higher quality steel nib with a much more expensive gold nib, where perhaps the gap of performance and the gap of quality between steel and gold has shrunk while the price has ballooned between the two.
That's very well said.
Thank you. That's something that was in effect when we first got into this business over a decade ago. It was already in effect, and it's only gotten stronger. So I think the assumption based on years and years and years and years and years of, assumptions that gold nibs are better, I think some of that is up for debate, as to whether you have to graduate to gold nibs to have a successful fountain pen experience. I do think there's a lot to appreciate with gold nibs, but I don't necessarily think that you have to go to gold nibs to have a fulfilling, enjoyable writing experience, even for the long term. You can go your whole life using steel nibs and have an absolute blast and, do it very affordably. So, that said, when you get into gold nibs, you get into some other, aspects of the pen, whether it's design or theming or limited edition type stuff. You get into some cool materials and other things that will then pair with a more expensive pen. So there will be aspects of going to a gold nib that you'll inherently, have other options as you step into that price range. But if you're talking specifically about the nibs, I don't think it necessarily has to be such that you are using gold nibs to get a great writing experience. So my thing, if you've never used a gold nib ever at all, try to use one. If you have somebody or there's a local pen club or you're able to go to a pen show, just try to use one once. Try and get a couple different pens, some iconic ones if you're aware of them. I'm a big fan of the Pilot nibs because they have good flow and some springiness to them. So you'll get a really good representation of, what gold nibs do and what makes them different going with a brand
They're
like
also
Pilot.
pretty affordable compared to a lot of other gold nibs out there.
Yeah. Pilot's got a number of good entry-level gold nib pens. So if you're able
with
to try
the E95S, the Custom 74, and the Vanishing Point are all three right there.
Yeah. Sailor's nibs tend to be a little stiffer, though their bigger nibs are good. Even with like Pelican, like some of their gold nibs on the smaller pens are not as springy and distinctly different as some of the steel nibs out there. Now, if you're getting into the M800, M1000, you start to see some more of the bounciness. And you get that with some of the Sailor, like 21 karat nibs, the King of Pens nibs, those get bigger, but those are significant investments. So I've always been a big fan of the Custom 74. That was one of my first gold nib pens, and that was the reason I love the Custom 74 and why I've talked about it so much in the past, is because that was kind of the aha pen that clicked with me. And I was like, I'd been using fountain pens for a year and a half or so before I started using that one regularly for myself. And up until that point, I don't know that I would have necessarily been able to feel or even articulate much of the difference between it. But I had at that point enough experience using steel nib pens where I was able to truly use and appreciate. And I was like, okay, this is kind of what people are talking about. Sort of like if you're like tasting wine or something like that. Like me, I don't taste a lot of wine. If I have a really expensive sip of wine, I'm not gonna say bottle because I never buy a bottle of wine, but if I have a really expensive sip of wine, I'm like, yes, this tastes better than the $5 bottle of wine that I normally would taste, but I can't tell you what makes it better or why. And I can't tell you why a $30 bottle is better than a $12 bottle. I just don't have the palate for that. So I think kind of using that similar kind of vibe in the fountain pen world, if you have a variety of steel nibs and you can identify the feel and what makes those nibs feel different in your steel nibs, and you have your own preference and you can really get a sense for the shape of the ball of the nib, if you have used them enough to where you can really distinguish between the pens that you have right then, you're probably at a place where you could use a gold nib pen and actually be able to kind of feel some of the difference. I'm not going to say that everybody would appreciate a gold nib just right off the bat, because it's something that it's sometimes more subtle. But if you're really invested and you have a lot of experience with it, you would appreciate and notice the fine differences, just like you would, a lot of other things, like a nice set of golf clubs or a nice tennis racket, or, a car with a specific type of handling or something, the responsiveness or whatever. If you don't use these things very much, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell or appreciate the difference, but you would if you have a certain level of experience. So I think give yourself time, and get to know your pens really well. And if you can feel that difference with the pens you have, even some of the lower price pens, then you may be ready to appreciate those gold nib pens, and it might be worth checking out. Or you could try getting one secondhand or something, especially if it's a more affordable pen. If you don't have a lot of money to invest, you don't have to buy something brand new. You can maybe get something secondhand off somebody or get a vintage pen. Might be a good foray to at least get to experience it before you really feel like you need to go nuts on some gold nib pens. There you go.
Yeah, and I love what you said there at the beginning, Brian, about the actual graduation aspect and kind of the myth that is the progression. That, if you want to have a better pen, you need to go with a gold nib, and that's not always the case. It's very much preference based. I mean, I'm certain that there will be at least one person here in the YouTube comments, if you want to scroll down, somebody's going to say, I prefer steel nibs. And that's totally common. That's totally fine. It's a preference thing. So like Brian said, just identify what your preference is, and you'll be able to figure out whether or not that is going to be for you or not.
There you go.
But definitely don't feel like you need to make the jump in order to, progress further into the hobby. It's not a necessity by any means.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for Q&A that we have this week. Thank you, everybody, for submitting those questions. If you have questions for yourself, go ahead and ask them in the comments, and we will gather them up and possibly answer them in the future. But we're going to move on now to our tip of the week. All right. Well, I have been tasked this week by Drew to do a tip of the week on one of my iconic pens here, the Lamy 2000.
Oh.
Didn't choose that specifically for this reason. You can do this trick on a lot of different pens, but this is one of the ones that benefits from it the most. So basically, if you have a pen like the Lamy 2000, or like some of the Pelican pens, they're piston-filled pens. The pistons move up and down. You can actually do this on converters as well, especially because converters used to be able to disassemble more. A lot of them have moved to be non-disassemblable. So this is actually a trick that works really well for converters too. A bit of a side note, but basically you have the piston moving up and forth. Wow.
That's it.
Back and forth, up and down. You're doing it a whole bunch. As you're using it over time, just naturally, you're going to get some friction in there. The lubricant that was put in there from the factory is slowly going to degrade over time. It happens basically with every single pen. A pen like the Lamy 2000, I don't like taking the piston out of this pen.
Don't do it.
I'm able to do it on other pens, but this one, it's really not very user serviceable.
No, and some of you might say, oh, well, I can do it just fine, and it might feel that way, but trust us, we have done it many, many times earlier on in the lifespan of our company. The threads, or the whatever you want to call those the threads on the piston rod itself are very, very flimsy, and in order to take it out, you need to be able to skip over a few of those threads. And when the piston knob skips over those threads, it bends them, or it very well can bend them easily. If it doesn't bend them the first time, it'll bend them the second or the third. It'll eventually happen if you do it enough times, and then eventually those top sets of threads will wear out and it won't catch on those threads anymore. So please don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen videos online of other people doing it, and they basically just take and they over rotate the cap, and you can hear the clicking, and I'm like, oh my gosh. You can maybe do it once or twice, and then you're going to destroy that piston rod.
Like with like the Ahab Creeper or something like that, it's made to do that. So the threads on the piston rod are very robust and they're shallow. The ones on the 2000 are very thin and they're longer.
Yeah.
They're not meant for that.
Yeah. Or a brand like Twisby, I mean, they literally give you a wrench and instructions on how to remove the mechanism out of the back. Yeah. So that makes it really easy to lubricate the piston and maintain it. But For pens that you can't easily disassemble, or you just question your own ability to disassemble or whatever, the Lamy 2000 would fall into this. A lot of Pelicans would fall into this range. Very simple hack for being able to do this. So the Lamy 2000 specifically, you can unscrew it at the little dog ears where the cap would normally sit on there. When you do that, ideally you want to keep the nib pointed down so that the little dog ear part, this ring, if you're near your sink, it's going to be like magnetized to want to go right down your sink drain. So you got to really be careful and hang on to this thing because they don't have replacements, and it's pretty much can't cap your pen without it.
Yeah, if you were to unscrew this like on top of a building or near a cliff, it will literally just jump off.
It will jump.
It's
absolutely.
It just wants to be gone.
So you got to keep that thing there. But essentially what you're trying to do is remove that grip off of there. And this would be the same concept if you have a Pelican M whatever. We're going to remove the nib unit out of there. Those have really relatively easy nib units to remove out of the pen. And then you have a nice big hole. I think Aurora pens, you can do that too. So there's options depending on the pen that are piston fill. And what you're doing, rather than removing the piston mechanism entirely and trying to grease the piston seal, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to use a toothpick, a little bit of silicone grease, and you're just going to take and you're going to kind of spread that along the walls of the inside of the pen. And then by moving the piston back and forth, it's going to pick up some of that grease and it's going to make it a little smoother for you. So all you got to do is take your silicone grease. We do sell this. I don't recommend using like a Vaseline or anything like that. I know some people do that for eyedropper conversions, but you're putting this actually in the pen. So it's best to go with 100% pure silicone grease. And then this stuff is inert. It's not going to react with, whatever the lubricant is that the manufacturer put in there. So you obviously do this when your pen is not filled with ink. After you've cleaned it, ideally try to dry the inside of it as well. So take like a little paper towel and like twist the corner of it and get all up in there. It helps if you move the piston all the way down as if you're filling it, sort of like I have here, because then you forced all the water that might be up there. You force all that to the opening and it's easier to clean out. A little bonus hack there. So once you've gotten that dry, you want to move your piston all the way up, get it out of the way. Take a toothpick. I like it because they're thin and it's not going to leave residue behind. If you were to use something like, a Q-tip or a cotton swab where you've broken off the end or something like that, you could have like junk in there. The wood toothpick, it's not going to scratch anything on your pen, so you're fine. And it's got a nice little pinpoint on there, so you can put just a little bit of grease on there. You don't want to get it on any threads or anything like that you're dealing with. You definitely don't want it to get anywhere where it would go onto the feed of your pen. Like, it only takes a little bit of silicone grease to block your feed channel and it'll just kill the flow of the whole pen. But anyway, so if you're just working with the back of the pen, you shouldn't have that much of a problem. But literally, you just kind of take and you put it in there, and then you just kind of rub a little bit along, with a toothpick at an angle like that, rub it along the walls of the pen, and you're just kind of getting it on there. You're not trying to spread it evenly or anything like that, because as the piston moves up and down, it's going to spread that grease out. And you just need a teeny tiny little bit. You do that back and forth a couple times until it feels good. And probably just doing it once, you're going to feel great. And it's going to be just fine after that. But if you need a little bit more, just dab a little bit more in there, do that same thing again, and you're going to be good for probably quite a while. So I like this trick a lot for piston fill pens like this because, you're operating it a lot, especially when you're cleaning out the pen. If you change your ink colors a lot and you're constantly cleaning, you might operate that piston 20 or 30 times. If you have a really stubborn color and you never clean your pens like I do, it's going to be stubborn in there. You're going to have to operate that piston a lot. That's going to wear out that lubricant more often. But me, just when I go in my cleaning process, especially if it's a full-on hardcore disassemble clean because you left your pen there for 2 years and haven't cleaned it out, not that I know what that's like, it's really just like one extra little step to do the toothpick and silicone grease thing, and then your pen just feels amazing. It's like night and day difference. It's incredible. I recently did this. I have a Pelican M1000, and I did it with that, and it completely changed the way that piston felt. And I hadn't even used that pen that much. It's just over time, the grease kind of broke down a little bit, but totally just revived the feeling of that pen, and it was amazing. So that's my little hack. All right. Now we're going to move on to our pen spotlight. All right, Drew. So you proposed that we spotlight another pen this week, which I thought was cool. And Everybody doesn't know this yet because we haven't published the video, but I am going to be featuring a pen in an upcoming video. And this is one of those pens. It's an listicle style that we're going to do. It's the Pilot Custom Heritage 92, which I know you're a fan of this pen.
It's one of those pens that, you know, if I had the amount of money that this pen costs and said, hey, go buy a pen, I wouldn't pick this pen. However, I feel like it's a borderline injustice for this pen to be as overlooked as it is, because it is an excellent pen. It really is. I think, and honestly, if you asked anybody, what's a good Pilot piston filler, they're gonna just look at you like, wait, what? Pilot? No.
This is the one. This is the pen.
This is the one. A lot of people don't even.
It's the one.
Right. It's the one, and it is a good one. It's a little up there in price, but it's a great pen. It's a beautiful pen. It's basically a so you've got Sailor, the Pro Gear, and the Rialo, right? Mm-hmm. This is Pilot, the Custom 74, and the Heritage 92. This is the kind of the cousin that does the piston filler, where Sailor has the Rialo, Pilot has the Heritage 92.
Well, it's weird because pistons, man, they vary all over the place, because you have like Noodler's pens and Twisby's and pens like that are in a very affordable price range that are quite reliable piston fillers. And then you have other brands where they don't have piston fillers until you get into the hundreds, maybe 500 plus, and it's like, okay, is piston like really valuable or is it not? I don't really know. It's definitely more complicated to engineer piston pens, and they're not perfect for everybody. The thing I'll say is, like, I change my ink colors a lot. I keep many pens inked at a time. I'm not like a dead set on having a piston filler or a pen with a really high ink volume, because that's not just really how I use my pens from a practical standpoint. Often, even if I have a piston filler, I'm only filling it a third or halfway, because I know that's just more for that thing to dry out. And I'm going to be cleaning it anyway and changing the ink colors because I have access to a lot of inks. It's not necessarily for everybody. I think if you're using a lot of ink, then, it's definitely ideal to use a piston or a vacuum or something with a high ink capacity, because it's just less often you have to fill your pen. However, the interesting thing about this, and where I'm split on the Heritage 92, is aesthetically, I think it's really cool. It's a flat top. I actually do like the flat top aesthetic on this style of pen. Legitimately, I like this style more than the Custom 74, which sounds like blasphemy because I've talked about how much I love that pen. But I never inherently love that pen purely because of its aesthetic. I think it's cool and it's got a lot of things going for it, but I think if I had like more of a flat top on the Custom 74, it would be an improvement. Not that I don't like it. Okay, don't bend it too much, but I do think it's really cool. But on the Custom 74, you have that magnificent Con 70 converter, Drew, which, as you know, is just the highest ink capacity converter that you can pretty much get out there. So you're getting about a little bit over a mil of ink with that converter, and you're frankly not getting very much more. I think you're getting like 1.2 or something like that with the piston on the Heritage 92. So while the Heritage 92 will get you a greater ink capacity than most other cartridge converter pens, because the Custom 74 takes that Con 70 converter, you're not necessarily buying yourself a lot. Unless you just truly hate the Con 70 like Drew and you'd rather have a piston, then it's totally worth it for you. But you're not necessarily buying yourself a lot of ink capacity. Now, the thing I will say is you're buying yourself aesthetics, because when you have ink sloshing around in that Con 70, you can't really see what's going on. You get that weird rod in there, and it's just, there's all kinds of things happening. You're looking at it through the pen body and through the converter. You can't really see the ink sloshing as much. When you have the ink in the body of the Heritage 92, especially if you have like a shimmering ink or something like that, you get to see all that glorious ink sloshing around in there. So that is much more satisfying. But
it's got a very smooth piston as well.
It does. It's a very pleasant pen. And the nib, the writing experience is exactly the same. It's same nib, feed, everything is a Custom 74. So that's a good thing, because it's hard to get much better than that. But it's also because it's so close to the Custom 74 in terms of most of its functional aspects of the pen, it's hard to justify a $60 price difference. So I think if there was a little bit less of a price gap and you had some, more interesting colors in the Heritage 92, I think the pen would be far more popular. But I don't know. It just hasn't. Really
you could say
been
that.
a big
You could
deal
say a
for
lot of the
Pilot.
same things. You could say a lot of the same things with the Riello, right? It's about
same thing. Same deal.
$50 more than the Pro Gear.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted that capacity, I mean, it really is all about capacity. It's a neat looking pen, but it doesn't look vastly different than the 74. But I will say, Brian, which clip do you prefer in the Pilot library? Do you prefer the little ball clip, or do you prefer the sword clip?
The sword clip. It's so
Absolutely.
much cooler.
Right?
So much cooler.
That's one of the reasons. So that is also something that it has going for it. It does have that sword clip, like the 912 does. It's a slick clip, so I have to give it props for that.
Yeah.
And I will say that if you are going to get like kind of, this is my one pen, a Piston-Filler is a good choice because it is going to be able to last you a good long time. If you're going for quality over quantity, if you're not a serial hobbyist and you don't want a fountain pen collection, sticking with a pen that is just going to hold a lot of ink for you to just do your writing with, if that's your goal, then you might want a piston pen. You might not be in the market for trying out a bunch of different inks. I certainly am. Again, I just don't want to have to deal with piston pens. I like cartridge converter pens because I do change my ink a lot. We've got 700, 800 inks right through these walls. So I'm like, I need to try that, But that's me personally. If I didn't work here, I wouldn't be tempted by that as much. So maybe I would just say, this is my color. I just need a lot of it. I am a huge journaler. An aspiring novelist. I just need to write a lot. In a custom Heritage 92, it would be a great choice.
Yeah, very solid. Though you said if you're not a serial hobbyist, who's here that's not a serial hobbyist? Like, is that even possible?
There are definitely fountain pen fans that are not serial hobbyists, but I don't know if they're listening to this pencast.
True.
Yeah, I've definitely met them. I've definitely met we've sold pens to people like, this is my one pen. I might get a second one day. But they just have their pen. They use it every day. But they're good. They're good. This is their end all be all, and I love that. I think that's a great thing to have.
I don't know what kind of life that is. I have no experience with that in any aspect of my life. Being a serial hobbyist. I don't know what that's like.
Does that mean you collect cereal?
I do like different types of. Me, I mix like 3 different types of cereal together when I eat breakfast in the morning. I can't even do like just one type of cereal. I want to try different types of cereal. I like customize the texture of my cereal, and I usually do blueberries in it too. It's a whole thing. It's a whole process.
I mean, I've seen several of your bowls of food that have no rhyme or reason to them. They're just like...
Oh, there's a lot of rhyme or reason. It's just, I don't know.
Explain that. What is the rhyme or reason?
What, behind the cereal?
No. Behind your your result is not to say, I'm going to find out how well all of these things combine. You're just saying, I want this thing and this thing and this thing, and they will all end up in my bowl together. But like,
you make it sound like I'm just randomly putting stuff in there. No.
What about that salad, like salad bowl with like just random things sticking out of it? Like,
so I was iconic I haven't done this as much recently. But back in my days when I was really trying to lose a lot of weight, I was eating like basically just like a rabbit. But I would make up my salads in these like giant, like Tupperware type containers. I would make them all on Sunday and they would last through the whole week. So I could still just do my crazy work day, but not have to like take time to prepare salads because that just takes forever. I would do it all on the weekend and then I would just grab a huge salad. I don't know. I just like a lot of different things in my salad. I'm a big fan of the Cobb salad. I like a lot of stuff, a lot of different flavors, and I would have like all kinds of stuff in there. I mean,
I can't remember, but I swear that we've had a meeting or something.
I would have like a spring mix lettuce with. I would have like deli turkey and ham in there. I would have some kind of crunchy thing like a crouton or little pine nuts or like these types of things in there, but those would get soggy, so I'd have to keep them in a separate bag. I would have some kind of cheese, but that would get soggy too, so I'd keep that in a separate bag. So I would have all this stuff. It would be like a whole production line of salads for the week.
You'd take up a good portion of that counter in the kitchen.
I would do that. And it would take like 5 minutes to dump it all in the bowl and I'd mix it up. But I was really hungry and I'm eating lettuce, so I would have to eat a lot of it to actually feel full. And then you're chewing for like 45 minutes straight. and I would just get tired. I would get tired of eating before I'd get full, and I would just stop.
It was basically like a football helmet full of salad.
Yeah, I would use like a 2-quart mixing bowl or some like gigantic.
Yeah, it's like when does a bowl become large enough to become a bucket?
It was arguably a bucket. I think does a bucket have to have a handle? Can you have a bucket without some sort of handle?
Believe it or not, my wife and I actually discussed this recently, and I don't know why. What do you mean? But we settled on no, it doesn't.
What do you mean, believe it or not? This is 100% a conversation I would imagine you two having. You said no, it doesn't. Did. You can have a bucket without having a handle.
Well, actually, what we discussed was when does a cup become a bucket?
Oh.
Because a cup is more like just traditional bucket shape. But no, we
okay.
No, we found a bucket without a handle. So.
But it had a handle. It was supposed to be handled. It was designed to be handled.
No. There are buckets without handles out there.
Why?
I don't know.
That just sounds inconvenient.
Well, sure, a bucket with a handle would be more convenient, but
yeah.
Anyway, speaking of the Custom Heritage 92.
Yeah, what were we talking about? Oh, okay. Cool. All right, well, anyway, solid pen. I'm not surprised it doesn't get more love, but I do think it's a great pen that's worth considering if the specific factors at play are important to you. That's kind of where I stand with that one. All right, so now that we talked about whether buckets should have handles or not from the Heritage 92, we're going to move on to what's happening. Now, the segment where we truly talk about nothing relevant.
All right, Brian. So I told you last week that my 8-year-old Archer had his birthday party over the weekend.
Yeah.
And that happened. He successfully turned 8.
All right.
So we have successfully parented for another successful year without
successfully.
He's surviving. He's surviving.
Time will tell whether
he's living. He's alive. He's alive. I consider that a victory.
You've met the bare minimum.
I've surpassed my own expectations. All right. And then, so it was a Ninja Turtle themed birthday party. I attempted to make cakes that looked like pizzas, and I will give myself a solid 7.8 out of 10. I was happy with those.
Nice.
They definitely didn't look like pizzas, but they looked like...
I think they look like pizzas.
I mean, they didn't fool anybody is what I'm saying. Like, no one thought they were pizzas.
It's not going to fool anybody. But,
I mean, I follow some Instagram accounts that like have disturbingly accurate cakes. Like it's
they're fakes. They're not real. It's Instagram. Somebody just
cut into them.
Fake. It's Photoshop.
Oh, dude.
Nah, I don't believe it.
All right, well, thank you. All right, so Brian's giving me a 10 out of 10. Oh well, they look tasty, but yeah. So I did the cake thing. I was happy with it. Obviously, the kids they loved it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, it looks like a pizza." We got some pizza boxes to put them in, so really sold it. Shannon helped me grate the white chocolate into looking like cheese. So we grated it with a cheese grater. Used fruit roll-ups. The fruit leather did not look good as pepperoni. That was way too brown. So we went with the fruit roll-ups. I had to cut around the tongue tattoos. So, the fruit roll-ups come with tongue tattoos now. They were the only ones I could find. So, I had to cut around the tongue tattoos to, create the circles. But overall, I thought it looked fine. Shannon was looking at the pizza. She's like, it needs something green on it. And I was like, well, that wasn't the plan. She's like, no, we need green, like oregano or something. So she went into the closet. And of course, I had a nerd rope in there because I'm into the nerd rope situation. And so she took all of the green nerds with the tweezer. She picked them off and then added them. She's like, there you go. Now it's got seasoning.
That's good. 8-year-olds are not going to notice that.
No, absolutely not. We were totally in it for ourselves at that point.
That's fun though.
So, yeah, it was novel. I think we did all right.
I thought for a second there you were going to say you just like dump some oregano on it.
No.
I was like, done. Boom.
I mean, we could have.
Daddy, this cake tastes kind of funny.
One of the kids really did think it was cheese, though, so I was proud of that. I was like, yeah, one of them has cheese on it, but it might be yours.
There's some cheese mixed in there with that chocolate.
So, yeah, that Saturday was a crazy day, and then Sunday we did nothing, and it was amazing. So I played a lot of video games. I finished the Mass Effect trilogy, so those were 3 games that were kind of older, but they remastered them, so I went through those again. Loved them, loved every second of it. And then I moved on to another game that I had played before, Red Dead Redemption 2. And that game is like, I think it's like one of my favorite games of all time. Easily top 3. I was just playing it yesterday, and you're just a cowboy roaming around doing cowboy things, and you're in your camp, and you can pour yourself a little bit of coffee and just kind of like walk around and drink it out of one of those little tin silver cups. And I'd played this game before, Brian, and yet I discovered that I can actually walk around with the coffee. I'd always just stood there by the campfire and just, but then I'm like, ooh, I'm walking and drinking my coffee. I'm like, I wonder if I can sit down at this table. And I sure do. And I'm just sitting there looking around, looking at the trees, drinking my coffee. I know this sounds dumb because video games are supposed to be exciting, but I'm telling you, this is my type of game. I like these environmental games where I just get, because I play it late at night. I'm doing this from like 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Like that's my gaming time. And I'm just like, this is fine. I'll play until I fall asleep. And then I'm like, all right, I'm nodding off, so let me go upstairs and hit the hay. But, so good. And we're watching the Daniel Craig James Bond movies too. So we started with Casino, watched Quantum, took a break because Quantum really took the wind out of our sails because it's Quantum and it's not very good.
We just don't really talk about that one.
No, we watched it. It was what I remembered it. Nah. But then like 2 nights ago we watched Adele. What did she say? Skyfall. We watched Skyfall. And, cool. My gosh, so good. So good. Oh, man. So we're going to hit Spectre next, and then we'll finally watch the new one that neither of us have seen yet. So excited
is
about that.
Out yet? Is that out
yeah,
yet?
it's out. It's out on physical media even.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I have to check that out. That's like pretty much like Bond movies and Fast and Furious movies. Those are the ones that Rachel and I will see while it's still newish.
Well, how about
like
that?
We might go to a place to see place to see it, or like buy it or rent it or something like that. Otherwise, it's like whatever. I'll watch it when it's on one of the various subscription services that we already have.
Yeah.
I will not skip over it if it's recommended to me and I'm looking for something to watch and have no better reason
I will
not
not
to.
dodge it if it is pummeling toward my face.
Yeah, pretty much.
Great.
Nice. That sounds exciting. Yeah, I've never done the like, hey, this next movie's coming out, so let me like pre-watch the ones leading up to it. I always like I get the appeal of doing that, but I'm like, I barely have the time and interest to watch the movie, let alone the predecessors.
I always do that.
I mean,
I did that with Ghostbusters recently too. I watched, Ghostbusters 1 and 2 before the new one.
More power to you.
I do it when I can, and sometimes we do it with we did it with The Witcher before the second season came out. We watched all the episodes of the first season.
Okay.
A lot of the times it's just because I have a terrible memory and I need to remember what happened.
Oh, that's true. One. I also have that, but I don't make the time to rewatch them. So I'm just like,
you lack memory and time. I just lack memory.
And then I'm watching it and I'm like, didn't this already happen? And Rachel's like, no, it was like 3 movies ago. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Look at explosions, fast cars. Anyway, good guys beating up bad guys.
That happens.
Yeah. So, okay, my stuff. Is it time for me?
Yeah.
Are you done? Are we done with you?
I'm done. That was literally everything I did.
Okay, that's cool. I had a pretty lazy week myself. Not really. I didn't. A less memorable, whatever, crazy week. We did get some requests for me to show Joseph's artwork again. I don't know what I did last time where people weren't
Put it in
able
front
to
of your
see.
face. Because remember, the screen's thin.
In front of my face. There is Joseph's stitch that he did for me.
But yeah,
I'm trying to show it in a way that people can see
in the
all.
video, the fountain pen part was cut off, so no one saw the pen.
Oh, okay. It's weird because I record this and I see my full frame, but then in post when we have both of us on one screen, so I really don't have a sense for how much of me is showing at any time. But anyway, so there's Joseph's.
It's basically just you. So if it's in front of your head or your body, people can see it.
All right. So I'll put it in front of my face.
That's right.
And you'll be happy. Okay. The last week for me was kind of a blur. Like I literally sat down to do these notes and I was like, has it been a week since we did Pencast? Like I don't even know what's going on. And we recorded last week's on a Tuesday too. So technically it's been 8 days. I don't know. It's kind of a blur. One notable thing that I did do is I cleaned some of my pens. I don't know why. I think I've talked about it so much on the Pencast where I was finally just like, all right, enough is enough. Like I'm sure I have some pens that need to be cleaned.
Unfinished business.
Yeah. And so I pulled out some pens and I gotta say it had been too long, obviously.
Oh, really?
It had been too long since I just made it a commitment to do that. I actually really enjoy the process. I do. I like pens. I like taking them apart. I think they're really cool. I like, taking the old crusty ink and getting it out of there and getting it all clean and, getting the grease on the piston and getting it moving smooth again. I don't know. It's very restorative. I do find that process appealing. I'll put on like whatever YouTube videos of people doing crazy outdoor activities or whatever historical events of the past, or I just put on random stuff. My YouTube watch list is, you're like, what insane person is watching all these random things? That's what my YouTube history is. So I'll put stuff in the background that I can just kind of zone out a little bit as I spend time with my pens, and it was pretty cool. So I started doing that. I cleaned probably about 12.5 pens. I mean, I really went kind of on a tear. But as soon as I started doing it, I was like, hey, Rachel, I'm finally cleaning some pens. The next words that come out of her mouth were, do you want to clean some of mine? Because she hasn't cleaned her pens either. She famously, I think, has cleaned like one pen ever, because I clean all her pens for her. Maybe that's why I haven't wanted to clean any pens, Drew, because it's not just cleaning my pens. I'm cleaning like double duty. So she hands me this whole cup of pens.
Pretty much all TWSBI Ecos.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah. She's a big fan of the Eco Broad, and she has different colors, and she puts the ink to match the colors and all that kind of thing. So she hands me the cup and she says, remember how much you love me. She just hands me all these pens, and I was like, yes, dear, I love you. This many pens worth. So anyway, I've been working on those. I haven't finished all of the pens, but I'm slowly chipping away at them. But TWSBIs getting handed a couple of TWSBIs to clean, it's pretty easy, because you're cleaning the same style of pen, one after the other, and you can like almost turn off your brain and just like, and I know exactly what to do with the TWSBIs. Like I'm gonna like loosen the piston just a little bit, because these are all crustified. Like they're all like, these are complete restorative cleans. This is not a gentle cleaning. This is a whole experience. So break the piston because it's got crusty ink on there. Get the wrench in there, untwist it, take that bulb syringe, a little bit of slightly lukewarm water with some dish soap in there, loosens things up a little bit, and just blast a few bulb syringes through that bad boy. And usually that's enough, depending on... Did
you lose any of the gaskets in the barrel when you pulled out the assembly?
No.
Oh, none of them stayed in?
No.
Oh, good.
Oh. You're talking like the piston seal with the whole rod and everything? Oh, yeah, definitely. A couple times.
No, not the rod, just the rubber.
No, they all stay. I mean, I lost the rod on a couple of them because they were all the way down, but they were like really kind of like adhered in there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to like force it out.
No, I've had some that were so stuck in there that the rod popped free of the rubber and the gaskets just been up there.
Wow. No, I didn't have that.
You need to use like a either an extended unfurled paper clip or a Piniter snorkel filler, or actually now TWSBI has their own the TWSBI pipe, which actually fits in there perfectly.
Hey,
so
there you go.
You just shove it out through the other end.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I didn't have any that were that bad. So
wow.
I count myself lucky on that one.
Nice.
But yeah, so I pulled all those out.
You did also encounter an uncleaned Lamy Dialogue CC though, didn't you?
I did, technically. Oh my gosh. So yeah. So Drew and I shot a couple videos, not together, but I have a style of video using a dual cam kind of setup and record it in one shot, and we can switch between the overhead and the face. You've probably seen that style of video. And we have that set up at the office, and so I was showing Drew like kind of how I do that. So I had a video prepped that was just basically a solo video of mine that we haven't published yet, but it's going to be about filling the Dialogue 3 Dialogue CC. And I was doing that, and of course I've been talking so much in the Pencast about how much I don't clean my pens. So I have the Dialogue CC, and I'm in there, and I'm going to ink up the pen
while he's recording.
While I'm recording, totally didn't realize that I had the pen inked up at some point. I don't think I had a lot of ink in there. I think it was just a little bit because I just like either dipped it or something, but I didn't really realize that it had been inked. And when I went to ink it and write with it, I was like, this ink is supposed to be brown and it looks kind of blue. And then I realized like, oh, yep, I'm going to reshoot this. So I totally forgot to clean out my pen. Inked it up with the new ink with the old ink still in there. And I was like, I mean, the point of the ink was more demonstrating how to fill the pen. So it still accomplished everything, but totally had
It was
some
just,
crusty
it was
fighting.
ironic because like I'm never in there when you're shooting videos, and it just so happens I was right there when it happened.
It's humbling, isn't it? Because you watch the uncut versions of the videos, and you're like, this guy has no idea what the heck he's doing. Like, what in the world? But there's a lot of details. You know, there's a lot of little parts and pieces. And
I'm just glad that I was there to.
It's crazy.
I was glad to have witnessed that one.
Yeah, that was pretty classic. That was,
Iconic.
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, normally I would have like spent a little more time and tried to clean up. But it was more like I need a video to shoot to demonstrate to Drew how I would shoot this style of video. It was a little less of, let me make sure everything looks pristine and my pens are clean.
It was for me.
Yeah,
it was for me.
no.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Anyway, so I did clean some pens. Also very excited, Drew, because I'm a big fan of the Cadbury mini eggs.
Oh, me too.
They're really only available, like pre-Easter time.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of those. They go great with coffee.
Yeah, I completely missed them last year. Didn't get a single one. And so I saw them. We were walking through Target with our kids, and I saw them, and I grabbed one bag, and I've eaten almost the entire bag, so I grabbed 3 more. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not missing out this year. In fact, that's what I've been snacking on this whole pencast.
Oh, they're so good. I like to put one in my mouth and then drink coffee and let the coffee
let it melt it.
It melts the inside of it.
Yes.
The candy shell still retains it.
Yes.
But then the inside is melted, so you bite into it, and it's just like chocolate explosion.
So good.
Oh,
so
the
good.
best.
Big fan of these.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no affiliation, but I like chocolate. Any chocolate in any form is pretty good. So anyway, I'm excited about those. And then I have a little bit of outdoor adventures. I mentioned how I have that really swampy, nasty area next to my creek. Well, I decided I dug a bunch of trenches by hand to try to divert the water. I don't know where the heck that water is coming from. It's literally like seeping out of the side of the hill. It's not like rushing down this hill or whatever. It's not a big hill. It's like a few feet. But like I dug trenches to divert this water, and like standing water is happening like above where I dug the trench. And I'm like, how does this work? Like, what is going on with this water? So I think it's actually like leaching like through the soil, like through the hill, and kind of coming down, and it's like not all diverting. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I was like, I'm just gonna throw a bunch of crap on top of it. That way I can get across it. So I threw a bunch of logs on top of it, and it's such a muddy, nasty mess. When I tried to like drive over top of it and stuff, all the logs went every which way, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna build a log bridge. So I have this completely impromptu looking log bridge that I'm now assembling on top of this muddy, nasty mess. It is the least planned looking thing I've probably ever built.
You've built small bridges on your property though before.
Yeah, I built like nice bridges with like pressure treated lumber and all this kind of stuff that are going to last. That is not what this is. This is like, I have like cut down a bunch of trees over time on my property. So I'm just going to not cut them up into small logs. I'm going to take the longer, like 8-foot chunks of tree, and I'm just going to like lay them and nail them. Like I'm doing some like beams, and then I'm just like laying them sideways and nailing them into the beams, like over top of this muddy, nasty mess, so that I can traverse across it. Hopefully, like all I need is for this bridge not to fall apart. And as long as I can cross it, my goal will be accomplished. And I'm like, it's like 40 feet long that I'm trying to cover here. So it's like, I'm not going to buy lumber to try to do this, So I'm like, I have trees on my property. I'm going to just take the trees that I already have everywhere, especially because we have all these storms and stuff. I've had so many trees fall. I'm just going to cut up these logs, lay them down, try to nail them together, and hope I can get across my muddy area. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Drew. It's like I'm so far beyond trying to justify these activities. Yeah, it's a little crazy. But I'm out there, and Rachel's just like, what? She's like, what in the world? She's like, what are you even doing? Anyway.
See, there's your James Bond rewatch time right there.
That's exactly it. I mean, that's the time that normal people would spend on relaxing activities. My relaxing activities are just going out and doing shenanigans out in the woods.
Building mud bridges.
I don't know. That's what I call fun.
No, that sounds fun. Like it is creative problem solving, and that does sound pretty fun.
Well, it was cool. Like my next door neighbor had a bunch of trees that fell too, and he had all this brush and stuff that he was just going to like try and get rid of or burn or something like that. But he's an older gentleman. So he had all these logs just like laying out there because he cut all the branches off, but he had the logs. And I was like, hey, those logs are just about the perfect size for what I need. I was like, are you going to use those? He was like, no. He's like, these things are a huge pain. I need to burn them or something. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I was like, you want me to take them off your hands? He was like, great. So it worked out for everybody. And I was like,
do you need to put do you need to put some sort of foundation beneath the logs so that the logs don't sink into the mud?
I'm sure they're going to sink into the mud. The mud will be the foundation.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were going to do sand or something like that.
No.
Okay.
That sounds way too formal for what I'm trying to do here.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm trying to have like, just to show you what I'm replacing, what I had previously done, because it was such a swampy mess. I had a whole bunch of like brush and just like random like branches and stuff that I just like threw into a huge pile just so I could sort of walk over this mess. And it's like sort of held up, not really. So I had this like networked mesh of old brush and branches and crap already in there. And then I tried to throw logs on top, which ended up going every which way. And then I've now
you've got a foundation already.
I have a foundation of debris.
Yeah, that works.
Just complete random scattered debris on top of mud. And now I'm trying to throw a somewhat connected pile of logs on top of it.
So it's going to be like a Tom Sawyer raft on top of some mud.
Basically, yeah. Imagine like Tom Hanks in Castaway type of a vibe. That's
nice.
What I'm trying to do over top of this mud. So we'll see. My fear is I'm going to spend like all week doing this. And like the first time I try and like move something heavy across it, it's just going to completely fail. And I'll be like, that was wasted time.
Why is the bridge important? Like, what is it leading you to?
Well, I have a creek that runs through my property and I can't really do anything. I can only walk. I can bring stuff by hand, but I'm trying to like be able to get some like, slightly bigger equipment over there so that I can like do stuff with the trees and stuff over there.
So you need to drive heavy things over this bridge.
Yeah, not heavy, but like, heavy enough.
Like your lawnmower and stuff?
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. Some light machine equipment.
That needs to be
Yeah, but I can't really do that. And literally the spot that I picked in retrospect was the worst spot that I could have done to try to cross. It ends up being the biggest, muddiest spot. And I didn't realize that until I was already in too deep, quite literally. So I've had fun living in the cold mud as I've crossed this bridge. I don't know, but it's kind of fun. It's like, there's no utilities there. There's nothing that I'm going to hurt.
You keep using this word. I do not think you know what it means.
It's like... There's very little consequence to whatever this ends up being. I'm having fun. I'm getting exercise. I'm outside. If a passable bridge comes out of it, great. If not, then I've just, if you exercise, like if you go for a run, what have you accomplished other than exercise and like enjoying the process? It's just my version of that.
There you go.
Except I might get a bridge out of it.
I think we have a few like extra L's for desks that you could probably use back there.
Right. we got some old storage equipment in the Goulet back corner that I could use.
Those L's.
Yeah. Anyway,
cool.
So
all right.
That's my latest shenanigans. Maybe I'll try to post a picture. It looks.
Yeah, please do.
It looks. I send these pictures to my family and stuff, and they're like, "What the heck is this?" Like they don't even understand what. Even after I explain it, they're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at here. Because it's like, it's not very like photogenic or whatever. But I don't know. I'll try to post a picture and see if y'all can make any sense of what I'm actually trying to do. Oh my goodness. All right. That's it for the personal stuff. We'll go on to the company updates here before we wrap things up. All right, company updates. Just one small little update here. We are, thankfully getting a little more caught up. Our team, it's turning out to be a pretty busy February for us, but we're thankfully having a little less impact from Omicron, and our team is navigating the choppy waters pretty well. So we're able to stay on top of things. We still have the notice up on our site for like the 2 to 3 day shipping. We're able to stay on top of that, maybe be a little bit better, but still day to day, we never know who's going to be out or what crazy things could be going on. So, we have to take it a day at a time. So not ready to fully commit to being back to our regular speed, but we pretty much are, or have been at least for a couple weeks now. But the one thing we do have notable is that we are going to be closed on Monday for President's Day. So if you're not in the US, you're like, what the heck is this even? It's basically to celebrate our presidents. I guess. I don't know. It's a national holiday. We're going to be closed. Our mail service is closed. So we're taking the day as a company. So if you're trying to place an order, you still can. But if you're trying to get anything shipped out that day or contact our customer service team, we will ignore you because we are not working that day. We'll be spending time with our families, having president parties or whatever. I don't know. Do people do things on President's Day? Mattress stores have sales usually.
Yeah.
Car companies and car dealerships usually have sales. Other than that, I don't know what there really is that's celebrated. But
yeah, my kid's off school, so I'll probably just spend the day getting shot with his birthday Nerf guns.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
There's still a thing, huh? The Nerf guns?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There's like different types of them now. I haven't really kept up much. There's like darts. There's small ones with balls that are like really aggressive. They're like, I forget what it's called. They're like little wiffle ball type things. But
he doesn't have those.
Yeah, it's like age 16 and up for those things.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've seen YouTubers that have like whole like forts set up with these things. I forget what it's called.
Jeez.
Some specific type of Nerf gun. Anyway, if you had that Nerf gun, please comment.
No,
I don't know.
he's not getting those.
No. Especially if all he does is shoot you with them. Oh my gosh.
I mean, he always hands me something, but obviously I have the crappy one. He gets the good one. He gives me like a little nothing.
Well, you know, you have a little more experience, so you got to balance it out a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I'll just actually throw the gun at him and teach him. I'll show you.
That's right. That's right. Oh, yes. Breeding lots of future therapy for your son. You say you successfully parented him to 8 at this point?
He's surviving. He's just fine.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so that's
he's
it.
good.
Yeah, that's it for company stuff. Now we're going to, I guess, wrap things up at this point.
That's right.
All right. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please leave us some feedback about how we're doing, as long as it's good. I'm just kidding. We're very fragile over here. Ask us questions so that we can answer them on future episodes, because we're always looking for that. Be sure to check out gouletpens.com for your fountain pen ink and paper needs. And don't know if you know this, but we put out videos regularly on YouTube, so you could subscribe. Share those with others. You can check out Instagram and other places where we like to hang out. If you're listening to the audio version, you can email us at pencast@gouletpens.com. And I have a random fact about dogs. I don't know why.
I like dogs.
I have this whole spreadsheet of random facts, and I was trying to share something I haven't shared before, and I think this is one of them. So Drew, yeah, you like dogs. I like dogs. I just don't have any. But that's cool. I'm dog friendly. So apparently dogs can smell separately with each nostril. So just as your eyes, when you see, compile 2 slightly different views of the world, and that gives you perspective, you know, your brain combines them to form a 3D picture. A dog's brain uses the different odor profiles from their 2 nostrils to determine where smelly objects are located. So their sense of smell is like 100,000 times more sensitive than humans. It's amazing. And they can actually use their sense of smell not only to get kind of a 3D picture of where the smell originated, but also get a sense of time based on the strength of the smell. That's why dogs are such good trackers, because they can tell where you come from and where you are going based purely on your smell. Isn't that crazy?
That's insane.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I remember the Mythbusters episode where Adam Savage tried to escape a bloodhound by using, various tricks, like, going through a river.
I never saw that.
Covering up your scent. Yeah, you couldn't do anything. You can't escape.
No. You're not going to do that.
Dog's gonna get you.
100,000 times, man. So sensitive.
I mean, the only thing that I think that worked was like, when they tried it in like a very busy city. They did
so many other smells.
Yeah. That was the only thing that worked. Like they went to downtown San Francisco or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
But other than that, like if you're trying to go into the woods and escape from a hound, no way, you're done.
You smelled so different from everything else in the woods. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna stick out.
That dog's gonna get you.
Yeah, it's gonna get you. Crazy.
Absolutely. Even if you change clothes.
Yeah, because like you have smell all over you. You smell of your smell. It's not just your clothes. Your clothes are just absorbing the smell that you're
now
emitting.
what if Adam Savage took like Noodler's pens and rubbed it all over himself? Like
do dogs like the Noodler's pen smell? Do they find that appealing? I don't know. I don't have a dog.
A lot of people do.
I don't have a dog, so I can't experiment with this. There you go. There's your
I like how that's your reason.
There's your random.
The only reason you can't experiment with this is because you're not a dog.
No, I don't have a dog.
You don't have. Oh, sorry. I thought you said I'm not a dog, so I can't.
No. Well, I'm also not a dog, but I don't have a dog readily at my disposal to subject to Noodler's pen smells to see if they find it appealing or not. I don't know. Maybe our fan base out here can.
How great would
give
that
us
be?
Some insights to what is the general consensus from the canine community about the appeal of a Noodler's pen smell. That I'm curious about. These are the questions we've all been asking ourselves.
I hope it's like that. I would love for it to be like that thing with the cats and the cucumbers, where like they turn around and see the cucumber and then just like flip out and jump up into the air. The dog smells a Noodler's pen. They're just like, oh God, you know. That would make me so happy.
Sounds like something we need to compile, put together.
We're definitely in the turkey hammock zone right now.
We certainly are. All right, everybody. We have far surpassed having any useful information to share in this pencast. We hope you have a wonderful week until we catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and right on.